You ever wonder how a company goes from just hoping for growth to actually engineering it? Well, today we're going to peek inside a fascinating case study in strategic design. We're looking at a company's detailed blueprint for building its own future.
It's a huge question, right? In a world that's always changing, how do you move from just reacting to, to proactively designing your own success? Do you just cross your fingers and hope for the best?
No way. The really smart companies do what an architect does before a single brick is laid. They draw up a detailed blueprint, a plan that lays out the foundation, the structure, and what the whole thing is going to look like when it's done. So, to see how this works in the real world, we're going to dive into the blueprint from a company called Ceinsys Tech. We're going to break down their strategy into three core pillars to see exactly how they plan to build their future piece by piece. First things first, every great structure needs a rock-solid foundation. And for a business, that means financial strength, financial stability. That's exactly where Ceinsys Tech starts its plan. Let's start with this number, 1,209 crores. Now, that's about 145 million US dollars. It's a pretty big number for sure, but what does it actually mean for their blueprint? It means they have a crystal clear view of almost a year and a half of guaranteed revenue. This isn't just a forecast, it's work they already have locked in. That kind of stability gives them a secure runway to get the more ambitious parts of their plan off the ground without having to sweat the small stuff day to day. So, how are they building that financial muscle? Well, they're making a very deliberate shift in focus. They're moving away from their traditional geospatial services, which have decent margins, around 15%, and steering towards these high-value tech solutions that bring in margins closer to 30%. It's a classic move, right? Work smarter, not just harder. And you can see the results of that smarter approach everywhere. They've tightened up operations, bringing their employee costs way down as a chunk of their revenue. They're fantastic at turning paper profits into actual cash in the bank. They pay all their bills on time, and they're sitting on a very healthy pile of surplus cash. So that foundation, yeah, it's officially fortified. Okay, so with that rock-solid financial base totally secure, the blueprint starts to build outwards. Pillar number 2 is all about expansion, and we're talking global expansion. Right now, their world is, mostly domestic. About 70% of their business comes from right there in India. But the blueprint? Well, the blueprint is calling for something much, much bigger. And here is the ambition. Within 3 years, the goal is to completely flip that ratio. They want international revenue from the US and Europe to become the main source of their income. Now, that's not just growth, that's a total transformation. So how on earth do you pull something like that off? Well, you do it with firepower. This is their acquisition war chest. $28 million set aside for one thing, buying other companies to kickstart that global push. And they're not just going on a random shopping spree. This strategy is surgically precise. They are targeting geospatial tech companies, specifically in the US and in Europe. It's a classic buy, don't just build strategy. Why? Because it lets them acquire not just revenue, but cutting-edge tech and, maybe most importantly, immediate access to markets and customers. But just building a bigger company isn't enough. The blueprint calls for building a better, more advanced one. And that brings us to the third pillar, the technology engine that's going to power this entire structure. So, at the very heart of their tech upgrade is this platform they built themselves. Put simply, they've created an AI that can take all this raw, messy geographic data from things like aerial scans and automatically make sense of it all. This makes the entire process of mapping and analysis way, way faster and more accurate than doing it by hand. The process itself is simple, but it's incredibly powerful. First, the system just sucks in all this raw data. Then, the AI gets to work, it cleans it, it structures it, and finally it spits out clear, useful insights for the client. It's just a huge leap forward in efficiency. And they are absolutely not stopping there. They're already developing the next wave of tech, like 3D modeling for construction, that's BIM, and whole platforms for the architecture and engineering industries. They're even baking in the Internet of Things, or IoT.
Now, the key here is that these aren't just services anymore. These are scalable, high-margin technology products that they can sell over and over again all around the world. This is the real engine for their future profit.
Okay, so we've seen the three big pillars of the blueprint: a strong financial base, a global expansion plan, and the seriously upgraded tech engine. So now for the final piece of the puzzle, the roadmap. How does this all get put into action?
The initial spark is actually expected to come from their home market in India. The trigger will be these huge government infrastructure programs, like the massive Jal Jeevan mission, which is this nationwide push to get clean tap water everywhere. That's what will really kickstart the next phase of revenue growth.
So if you're watching this story unfold, what are the immediate signs to look for? Well, they're expecting a big chunk of work from that water mission, around 400 crores. They expect other major projects to pick up speed, and they've set a really ambitious target to bring in another 800 to 900 crores in new orders this fiscal year. This is basically the fuel for the whole engine.
So here's kind of how the whole roadmap unfolds. In the near term, keep an eye out for those big government orders to start coming in. Then, through the next fiscal year or two, look for that M&A activity to start happening over in the US and Europe. And by 2028, the blueprint's ultimate vision should be pretty clear, with that international revenue leading the charge.
You know, when you boil it all down, the entire story comes back to this one powerful idea, straight from the company. It's a strategic shift, a move away from being an engineering services provider to becoming a global, scalable technology products company. From one-off projects to repeatable global products.
And all of this leaves us with the final and most critical question. The architectural plans, they're impressive. The foundation seems strong, the materials are ready to go, and the vision is crystal clear. But now comes the hard part: execution. The blueprint is drawn, but can they actually build it? Well, that's the story to watch.